Stakeholders waiting, approvals escaping, nothing was dragging the wind. Cha-cha changes, time to bring some real management. Cha-cha changes, shift control before it all gets bent. We're stepping into order with change control in place again. Deployments flying with no oversight. Hot fix panic every afternoon. We need it.
All right. Thank you all for joining today. We are excited to share our new built on Workday app, the Change Control Manager, with everyone here today. We'll go through this presentation. Feel free to pop questions into the Q&A. We will have plenty of time at the end to get to those. With only 30 minutes to get you all these juicy details, we'll do a quick introduction of our key players from the Groove, a quick overview of what Built on Workday is, then get to the real conundrum we have with change control. And I don't know about you, but I can't just talk about a problem if there's no solution. So, of course, we'll tell you how the Change Control Manager app actually solves those problems. And then we'll do an intro to features and benefits. And then after I'm all done talking, you get to see the cool stuff. I'll turn it over to my coworker, Chris, here, who's going to do a demo. And you'll get to see it live in action. And at the end, we'll have plenty of time for the Q&A and wrap up with a fun announcement before sending you off to the races. So nice to meet everybody who's here. My name is Noelle McChristian. I am from the Groove and I do strategy and go to market. I will be joined today by, oh, I'm sorry, that's not the right name. This is Chris Humphrey, who's on the call. Make sure to change that. And he was the architect of this application. Sorry, Chris. And he's one of our directors of Extend here at the Groove. And then later on, we'll be joined by Benjamin Roosh, who is the lead developer of this app, and he's a consultant, an Extend consultant here. Many of you may have heard this term built on Workday coming from the Workday Marketplace or maybe some other Workday announcements, Rising, or other partners. But I just want to make sure we do a quick alignment so you can get a good feel for what the Change Control app will actually be doing if you decide to purchase it. The Change Control Manager app is a built on Workday app. You may also see it referenced to as BOW or BOW. These are pre-built apps built solely by Workday partners, and they're distributed through a framework that Workday has built themselves called the App Distribution Framework. You subscribe to the app the same way you subscribe to any sort of product, and then you get to use that functionality. But there is no implementation or deployment services that are needed as a part of that, right? You just get the app, you install it, and once you subscribe, that app becomes available for you to install in your tenants, and you'll get to use it just like you would any feature or Workday product in your native environments. The purpose of these apps is that they extend the Workday delivered features and functionality without Workday product having to build all of those nuances into its baseline product. So they usually always solve a specific use case or business challenge without the need for you to have to build something very specific to you. The apps themselves are built using the Workday Extend framework. They run inside your tenants using your security. We as partners, we don't get access to your tenants. We don't see your data. We don't host your data. We just own the baseline code of the app. And the best news about that all is that you don't actually have to buy Extend to use it. You're just subscribing to our app. We do all of the Extend work in the background. So now that we've established that, if you're here, you're probably no stranger to internal controls and all of the unique challenges that can occur when there's inconsistency or manual tracking of these internal controls. My husband used to be an IT controls auditor, and I can tell you those guys do not play when it comes to how deeply they comb through every detail of every control. So when you don't have centralized tracking, you're at a higher audit risk. Over half of audit risk findings are tied to weak IT change management controls. You're also creating inconsistent governance when you use things like email, chat, or spreadsheets. The manual effort may not seem like a lot for one tiny change, but when you consider that you're making hundreds or thousands of changes in a year in Workday, you're really looking at almost over 1,000 hours of manual effort when you have external systems or manual processes. And then, of course, what happens when there's something that needs remediation? Uh-oh, audit found a problem. A failed audit control can not only cost the licenses and certifications, but in order to fix it, you've got to actually pay for things like the hiring of consultants to give you the recommended way to fix it, and then time taken away from work to focus on that fix, and then increase in scrutiny in future audits. So, how did we solve for this? This is why we built the Change Control Manager app. And many of us who work at the Groove and who were a part of this have been customers in the past. And we know that once you go live, there's tons of changes and requests that you need to make quickly, and they're coming in rapid fire. So we created an app that actually we ourselves use at the Groove for tracking changes. You've got the entire process centralized within the system of record for full visibility, full auditability, and it uses all the native Workday functionality that you benefit from in other modules like business processes, security, and reporting. And we do this through three key features. The app comes with its own business process definition. So, same way that all the default definitions come with standard Workday functionality, you get to define the steps and approvals required for each type of change. You need to route differently for a calc field for approvals, a change in a calc field for approvals versus a security change. Not a problem. You can do that. A centralized hub will be another feature that this comes with. You can look at all the changes, where they are, who they're sitting with, which have been completed, what the notes and comments were associated with each, and more. You can also configure the types of changes within this hub that you want to make in your organization. Maybe integration requests, security requests, calc field changes, things like that are in your list. But that's up to you on how you configure those. And of course, those comprehensive audit trails that come with leveraging the Workday platform, it's all in there and ready for your annual auditors all in one place. And just to really clearly lay out the benefits of using the Change Control Manager app, you get one single source of truth. So no more manual tracking through spreadsheets, emails, phone calls, chats. You've got that enforced consistency and governance, right? By having that pre-built flow in the platform where the changes are happening, you reduce that administrative effort. And now changes can be delivered faster. You've got one process in the source where changes are happening. You can rest easily knowing that those requests aren't going to get lost with the admin hub and the streamlined processes. You can always know where the change request is at. And the real win for all of these things is that you now have consistency, which drastically reduces your audit and compliance risks. So, with all that being said, probably want to see what this looks like, right? So, I'm going to turn it over to Chris, who's going to walk you through some different scenarios and seeing the live Change Control Manager app in action. Take it away, Chris, not Clint.
Not the first time that we've been confused. Clint and I have a joke that only our mothers can tell us apart. Right. Let's see here. Can we see the tenant?
Yes, you can.
All right, excellent. So for this app, we have two personas. Our first persona is our user, which is actually making a request to perform a change. And so we have a task for this we can do in the global search, and it's going to be create change request. And this comes delivered as part of the application. So when you install the app, the task is there. So this is the basic form we have. You'll see on the right side, we have some instructions on how to use it. And we kind of give some information about different parts, and I'm going to walk through the whole thing. And as we go, I'm going to talk about some things we're going to see with our second persona or administrator, in case people are curious about what can be changed here or customized. And there are a few things that we can do. Okay, change type. Overall, what is this? Is this a new configuration? Am I updating an integration or a customer report? Am I creating a security group or adding someone to a security group? The change type is completely customizable by you. So this list will be populated based on what you set up in the application. These are just the examples that we're using for demo purposes. So in this case, let's say we have new configuration. What is it? We're going to be implementing a new Fidelity 401k integration. Now, hopefully the setup that you're doing has been tested in another environment like sandbox implementation. And so if that's the case, you've had someone testing and you want to track who tested it, you can optionally put in some information about who did the testing. So we're going to say that Logan was my tester, and she finished it on Sunday. Easy peasy. All right, so now we have the section where we're going to go into more granularity about the actual items that were being changed. And this is a panelist, so we can add additional entries, and I'll show you that in just a second after we fill the first one out. So change item types. What do we have as the options here? Core connector, studio, security group. There's uh, different options here. Again, these are customizable. What's in this list is just a set of examples that we added for demonstration purposes, but you can configure it according to your needs, and they could really be anything, right? Um, Now, the categories we have are predefined. You can't customize those at this time, but the individual entries within those categories. So, for example, integrations is a category, core connector, etc. And again, when we go to the admin interface, I'll show you how that all looks. So let's say in this case, it's a core connector. So we have a Fidelity integration that's delivered. It gives some details. We can even say, it's int 60/40, say inbound Fidelity 401k. Risk, we're going to say this one's low since it's a connector, it's not custom code. Um, Reason for change, new functionality for company, integrating with Fidelity, and rollback plan if we need one. Say something like we're going to disable security group and schedule to prevent execution while any issues are resolved. So perhaps we're setting it up in production, copy it over to Sandbox, do our testing, validation. And like I said, we can add an additional item here. So if we want to get more, detailed about everything. So in this case, we're also going to need security. So we'll say security group, and we'll say ISSG for integration. Then say low risk, support for integration. Now note I have this one as required. That's configurable, and that's something the admin can set up. Okay, we can keep adding as many as we need. I'm just going to keep it at those two. And then at the bottom, we also have the security notes/details. You can really use this for anything you want, but maybe if you have some, SOX compliance or, something you have to go through as part of your process. Maybe you have a tracking value that you have in another system you want to put in here. You can put any of that detail here. So finally, there's attachments. Supporting document. You can drop some attachments on it. We're good to go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and submit this. And then I am going to stop proxy. We'll switch back over to Logan. And Logan's going to have the admin perspective as the admin persona. And she's going to have something that hits her inbox from the business process that was executed. And what we're going to see here is an approval request for, and this is using a sequence generator. So we got CH-20 is this request ID. Since it's a sequence generator, you can set it up how you want as far as what those values look like. And it's going to give you a rundown of everything that was just submitted by Teresa. You can see all this information I just filled out. It's pretty straightforward. And then process history down here. We can approve it. We can send it back. We can deny it. If you send it back, it's going to go right back to Teresa for revision. She's going to have the same information. It's going to be filled out just like any other business process. Okay, we're going to go ahead and prove this because there is one more step in the process. And so I'm gonna proxy back as Teresa, so we can finalize this. And note the business process, just like any other, is configurable, like Noel noted before. So if you don't need approvals or you have conditional approvals, depending on the request type, you can configure that. So this flow doesn't necessarily have to look the same way for your company based on your needs. So this is the finalization of this process. And again, this is an action step you can set up in the business process. And what we allow here is, okay, cool, it was approved and I finished it. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say I finished it today. And then uh, again, for granularity sake, we allow you to say what the actual implementation date is for each individual item. If you want to track, that way, we're going to auto-populate based on what was selected here, so you don't have to do them individually. And then any additional notes that you want to be able to track, you can plug in there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this, and that's going to close out, and that process is now complete. So that's our user persona. And let's switch back to Logan as our admin, and let's look at what else the admin has control over. So we're going to go manage. For some reason, my mouse just jumped out. Manage change requests. So this is our admin interface for the application. And you'll see a couple things right away. One is we're going to have these change requests by status, little donut chart here. It's going to tell you how many have been successfully completed, how many are in progress, and how many have been denied. So basically a nice breakdown based on the statuses of those business processes. And then down below here, we can also see any that are in progress. You can look at any that are completed as well. And we can actually view them here. And it'll show all the information that we just saw in that business process, along with the supporting documents that have been provided. And that's really nice, quick and easy way to kind of look at the volumes and specific information if you need to. Now, configuration, we have a few options here. So we can configure the change request types, the change item types, and also we can set what's required. So we'll look at each of these. So the change request types are the top level overall type, and this is what I showed for demonstration purposes. Again, we have new configuration, configuration update, security update. You can add any that you want and throw a description in. If you have some that have been added previously that you're not using before, you can disable them. You save it here, and your changes should be reflected right away. Now, change item types. These are for the specific item level entries where we have the categories, and these are the categories that are available right now. And again, these are all hard coded. These aren't configurable. You give it a name for what that is. You can put a description in, and you can also enable and disable. So this gives you the power to basically meet the needs of your business in terms of what you see are the types of changes that people are going to do and how you want to categorize those. All right. And finally, we're going to look at the required field list here. And this goes by the request itself or the item fields, and it allows us to go in here and toggle whether these specific fields are required. So if I always require a tester, I can turn that on, and then that will now be required in the business process. And if I say I don't really care about the completion date, then I can disable that one, right? So you have control over all these to determine what is actually required and what is not. All right, we'll go and discard that. I don't need to change anything there. And also we give you this nice grid down here, which kind of gives you the quick view of what these are. So you can see my change types and my change items here, and then what's enabled and what's not. All right, one other thing I wanted to talk about real quick is reporting. Now, with Workday Extend, whenever I create a new object, which we have multiple objects in this particular um, application, let's say change items. We can go in and create a report just like with anything else. And um, let's see, what are they going to be? Let's just see, change. Change requests is probably going to have the information we want. And if we click on the related actions, you'll be able to see here that it's associated to this app, Change Control Manager. That would tells you you're seeing the right one. So I can actually create a custom report, which is really useful for not only reporting, but if I want to send information out to an external system, you can quite easily do that here. And so we can take a quick look and we can see I can get the change ID, I can get the item instances, um, self-reference, the change type, all sorts of this information, the tester, all the data that we store on that object, right? You can report on. And if it's like a related object, of course, just like any other report, you can go here and say, I want to look at the change items. And then within the change items, I can get any information there, like what the completed, what the item is, item type, etc. So you really have the ability to customize it and build out if you need to integrate or if you just want to do any kind of report, you have that capability there as well. And that is everything I had to show on the application.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. I'm gonna go back to sharing over here. And we had some good questions show up in the chat. Let me switch. Are you able to see the presentation again?
Yep, we can see it.
All right, great. And Ben, thank you for joining us. We're excited to have you here to help answer some questions as well. One of the questions that we got was around whether or not we could, sorry, I'm trying to find my Q&A again, guys. Whether or not this stopped someone from making any configuration changes in Workday.
And just generally speaking, the only way you can prevent people from making changes in Workday is by not giving them security to do so. But imagine you would have to cover everything, right? From reports to integrations, etc. So it's not really feasible for the app to be able to do that. That's something that you would have to control, like with your security processes. Um, this is really geared towards auditability of the changes. So there's definitely process involved. And this is something I've seen in a lot of projects with customers where they have their own change management in place. And anytime you want to say push something to production, you have to go out to Jira and open a ticket, get an ID, and track that when you do say like security changes and Workday and whatnot. So this really just takes it out of those external systems and allows you to have it right there in Workday centralized.
Right, and it'll allow you to check if somebody made a change without going through the process too. If you know, at the end of the day, if you want to check between the two, right? Like you could run a report on all the changes that came through as a change request, and then check to see if somebody made a security request or a security change without going through that process. Okay, another question that came through was reviewing prerequisites. So I typed the answer so folks could review it as well. But there really are no prerequisites as far as, oh, you must be using this specific functionality. The only prerequisite to actually install the app is purchasing it, subscribing to it with us, the Groove, and just using the Workday core platform. So if you're a Pecan only customer or a planning only customer, a Venly only customer, and you don't have the Workday core platform at all, which means HCM, financials, or student, these built on Workday apps don't work with the acquired Workday or the non-core Workday platform stuff. But as a prerequisite for yourselves before you install it, you probably should know your own processes to be able to build out who needs to approve and whatnot. Okay, the next question is around the connect. Does this connect to Customer Central to make the changes automatically after it's approved?
No, there's no kind of integration with anything like Customer Central or anything like that.
Yeah, so it's just a like when the request is approved, you have to actually go and do the change that you would
Yeah.
normally do. It's just for tracking, right?
Yeah, and realistically, the change could be anything, right? It could be in any aspect of Workday. It could be updating a dashboard, creating a new report, adding a field to report. I mean, however, granularly you wanted to be able to track. Another one of the questions, can you set up specific security for this extend process? Yes, there are 5 different security domains that this application includes, and those secure the ability to, say, make changes to those configurable options, like the types of, change request, as well as who can actually access the admin pages, um, uh, who can do the approvals. That's a separate domain, as well as who can even do the requests for these change requests. Right now, we just have this as a self-service and for the demo, but if you wanted to make it like more limited on who could do it, I know in some organizations it'll be like you have only a few people will be making these changes depending on, the size of your org. You could certainly limit that based on the security group. So those look just like any other security domain you would modify in Workday, and they're all delivered as part of the app.
Another question, Chris, is if you're using an external system, like let's say you're already using Jira or Atlassian or something like that to track these changes, or ServiceNow, and you want to make sure that the change requests that you make for configuration changes in Workday, you want to be able to export that and track it in those external systems. Can you export this or integrate with those systems to send these through?
Yeah, you could certainly build an integration, and that's one of the reasons I showed that custom report, right? And that'll allow you to get to all the data that you need to, or if you're working with or say orchestrate, you could use a WQL call, pull all the data you want, and then send that off to wherever it needs to go. So it gives you the flexibility of getting that data out. You could trigger that on the business process and have it go like per record, or you could batch it on a schedule, however, whatever makes sense for your volumes, probably.
Awesome. Okay, it looks like we answered all the questions. We will stay after if you want, and then we could take you off of mute so we can have a conversation. Um, I will move on to the next slide here. All right. So, one of the benefits of attending this webinar, all people who attended will get to try this out. We know that this built on Workday concept is kind of new for Workday customers. And, I like to touch and feel when I'm looking at new features and functionality. And so, we're going to give you guys a chance to try it out in one of our demo environments. After this webinar completes, I will send out an email to each individual organization who's attended with a link to our tenant, specific username and password for your organization only to log in, the user guide, which walks you through the different scenarios and ways to use the app. You'll get our email address if you have any questions, not just this generic email address, which is the group of us that support the product development here, but you'll also see Chris on that email as well as Ben to help answer any questions directly as well. And then I'll also send out today's recording so that we can reference so that you can reference all of the demos that Chris went through. And you have up until the end of this week to give this app a try and see if it's something that you're interested in. If you want to set up another time specifically and invite others from your organization to see that, you're welcome to reach out and let us know. We can set up those as well. Or if you go out to the marketplace, there's a place where you can purchase it directly. There's a place where you can request more information. There's another demo video out there as well. So lots of information out there, but we are still here and we would love to hear from you once you start testing this out.
Yes, feel free to share the username and password with your team. That's no problem at all. It's just a GMS tenant, and will provide everybody their own credentials. I will say the one thing the accounts we're sharing won't be able to do is you won't be able to like make changes to like the options and save them just because we have security set up that way, so nobody can go in and mess it up too bad for other people since everybody's going to be in the same tenant. So, but feel free to look at those pages, where you can make those changes.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that, we thank you guys so much for attending today. We hope that you're as excited about this app as we are. We will stay on. I'll stop recording so that we can answer any questions from folks. We'll take you off mute and we can have more of a conversation. But if you're looking to drop now, feel free to, and we hope to hear from you again soon.